What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Ventures Tower. Thor, Love, and Thunder had its world premiere last night in LA, and a ton of different folks are out there on social media this morning talking about their first impressions of the movie. So we're going to go through a bunch of those different reactions together, talk about what we think about these first reviews, essentially, for Love and Thunder, and at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my take and just kind of tell you where my personal expectations are at for this movie. Let's start with Brandon Davis of comicbooks.com. He says, Thor, Love, and Thunder is absolutely electrifying. My favorite Thor movie of the four. Taika Waititi through and through. It's mature. The soundtrack rocks, and there's great surprises. So much fun. Feels like the best of MCU Phase 1 and Phase 4 in one entry. Loved it. Super awesome there. Very cool thoughts. And he goes on to here say, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, a.k.a. Mighty Thor, is just such a home run. Her whole story here is powerful and fulfilling. Christian Bale is creepy good as Gore. He could have benefited from a little more screen time, but lands really well. Great villain. And this is something you're going to see through a lot of these different reports and what people are saying. They're saying that Jane's great in the movie, and she has a really cool arc, and the villain of Gore is like really, really creepy. We had heard that Christian Bale's villain in pre-test screenings had tested the best out of any Marvel villain so far, and it could just be the fact that Christian Bale really brings it, and apparently it's just really, really creepy. Here's an interesting one from Kirsten Acuna from Insider. She says, Christian Bale is phenomenally menacing as the villain Gore the God Butcher. One of the creepiest Marvel villains we've ever seen on screen. Gave me some Dark Knight, Ledger, Joker vibes at one point. And then, again, this is something that I've seen a lot of different people say is like, dude, he's really, really creepy as Gore, and it really does a lot for the actual narrative of the film, which is dope. And Kirsten's initial reaction was, wow, Thor Love and Thunder is great. The best entry in Phase 4 behind Shang-Chi and No Way Home. I laughed, I cried, then laughed, and cried some more in that order. Natalie Portman is finally given her due. Dr. Jane Foster is more than worthy of beating the mighty Thor, which is really cool. And yeah, apparently her arc is really interesting in the movie. And even in some of the clips and things that I've seen, it's not what you would think, and it's different than what it is in the Marvel comic books. I think to the benefit of the overall movie and story, from what I've heard. But yeah, high praise here for Jane Foster and Chad May doing her thing. Now, this one is pretty interesting here from Caitlin Booth. She didn't love the movie as much as some other people out there, and I always find reviews like this pretty interesting. So she says, Love and Thunder, I have thoughts and feelings, a lot of which are spoilers. Some of them I'm not happy about. What I can talk about is something that the thing that made Ragnarok such a breath of fresh air was how different it was from the other movies. And she goes on here to say, however, you can't be that breath of fresh air twice. So you need to up the emotional connection to the characters in the plot. See the Guardians movies. Love and Thunder tries, but can't quite hit it and comes across as weirdly restrained, which is a shame. That being said, it's not a bad movie, and perhaps Love and Thunder will appreciate well for me the same way Ragnarok did. Lovely to see Jane again. Valkyrie is love, and there isn't enough gore. Not a bad entry in the Marvel Universe, but not a great one either. So again, pretty interesting. I sometimes find that I find more interesting things to think about from negative reviews than just glowing positive reviews, but so far we have a lot of people praising Gore, praising Natalie, and Caitlin's just pointing out that this freshness that Ragnarok had isn't quite replicated in this second movie, and there are some decisions there that she didn't like. She's saying there's not enough gore, which is interesting because Brandon Davis said he could have used more screen time. The runtime of the film is pretty short, so perhaps that will be an issue for some. Let's talk about Griffin Schiller. I find this dude's reviews to be really interesting, and I always laugh because his last name is literally Schiller. He says here, Thor Love and Thunder just cemented itself as one of my favorite MCU films, bursting with so much heart, emotion, and sincerity. I teared up. I smiled from ear to ear. This film is a warm hug and plea to cherish the present, live in the moment, and do something that matters. I adore this film. He goes on to say, what I love most about Love and Thunder is that it's a Taika Waititi film through and through. His writing is the real star. Got the free-spiritedness, like affirming heart of his non-blockbusters, and some terrific spectacle that is a big improvement from Ragnarok. Beautifully blends humor and heart in all the right places. Christian Bale's Gore arrives as a top-tier MCU villain, probably the best, whose arc packs an emotional wallop in the climax. He's fiendishly and terrifying, yet incredibly sympathetic. Great antagonist. But the beating heart of the film is Thor and Jane Foster. I mean, my God, the romance was so real, so relatable. I felt every moment of it. The passion might be my second favorite MC romance because of how genuine it was, and the actors deliver their best performances as these heroes. So frankly, that's really cool to hear. And again, in some of the interviews that we've heard Taika and some of the actors do before this movie, I was actually pretty surprised that it seemed like Taika really went for it with the love. And I think some of us might be like, wow, are they going to bait and switch or switch it up? Or is it not really going to be about a love story between Jane and Thor? And frankly, I think it really will be. I think it's genuinely going to be a love story between these two characters. I think Taika went for it for the audience's sake, and yet it seems like he still put a bunch of his weirdness and interesting sensibilities into the movie. And if it really does nail it with that and become a movie that is just really about heart and about love and about being present, that could be really cool and a nice breath of fresh air after Multiverse of Madness, which I absolutely love. But the lesson in that movie is that everything's terrifying and you've got to do what you got to do. Here's an interesting take from Eric Goldman. He says here, I'm very happy with Thor, Love and Thunder. I don't think it's quite as great as Ragnarok, but it comes incredibly close and actually has some aspects that outshine it. Taika Waititi continues to be a perfect fit for these movies, and Hemsworth and Portman were so good together. So really cool, somebody saying that it doesn't quite match up with Ragnarok, but it outshines it in certain moments. And I've also heard a lot of folks sort of aim or rather talk about the maturity of the movie, that it's like a mature love story, that it's, although it's really goofy and it's kind of all over the place, which again is something we'll get into because some folks are saying it's like a straight comedy. Even though it has a lot of those elements, I think that some of the themes that are at play and some of the things that are being done between those two actors is really mature, and that's really cool to hear. And then the last tweet we'll look at is Thor, Love and Thunder is everything great about comic book movies, truly hilarious, insanity, heart-wrenching tragedy, and bombastic action, visually stunning, and one of the best MCU soundtracks. The entire cast is fantastic, but Christian Bale and Natalie Portman are phenomenal. That's from the Illuminati. Now, the last reaction I want to talk about before I get into my thoughts and like where my expectations are at comes from the Cosmic Wonder. Okay, Cosmic Wonder, sit down, Warren. He did a little thing with a friend of his that went to the premiere with him, and I found his review to be really insightful and really refreshing. So shout out to him. Go watch that review. If you want to get hyped up for the movie, watch Warren's review, because I read a lot of this stuff, and, you know, just for me personally, I have sort of mixed feelings about my hype level for this movie. And then when I watched his review, I was like invigorated. Like, he had a lot of energy in his video, and I think he made a lot of good points. He says that the action and the spectacle is absolutely incredible in this movie, that there's a lot of things that you wouldn't expect them to do in the film, and it really goes there in the sense of like surprises and lore. And I think this will have to do with like the gods and the fabric of the universe and how the MCU is all tied together, which seems really, really cool to me. He says that the overall story of this movie has been kind of hidden from the public and that there's some mystery there, and I can read certain things into that gore is absolutely incredible, and the final battle is going to be ridiculous, and that, yes, Natalie Portman, really, really cool as Jane Foster. So I highly recommend you check out his video because he got me pretty hyped up for the film. Now, where am I at with this movie overall? I gotta say, I think that this movie is going to be pretty much what the doctor ordered, in a sense that it's going to be a very, very Taika Waititi movie. One of the things that people are debating online right now, and Warren brings this up in his video, is the fact that it's really jokey. I mean, it's Taika, and it's going to be really, really Taika, and it's going to have so much humor all over it. Some people, maybe that's not their favorite thing. I know in our live streams and in the comment section of videos, some people love Taika, some people are not a fan of the way he does humor, and some people are kind of whatever, it's fine. And I think this one's really going to push that forward and be very, very Taika, right? Now, the idea of all of that being sort of balanced with a very mature and very complex love story between these two characters, I find really interesting. If you can add in a little bit of that MCU flavor, crazy surprises. We've seen the Celestials in one of the most recent trailers. Looks awesome. So if we get a nice mix of that MCU flavor, the Taika Waititi craziness, grand, amazing spectacle, a really interesting and creepy villain, I think you have all of the ingredients for a really, really fun time at the box office and a really good Thor movie. I've even heard some people say this movie just sets up Thor 5, and without getting into too many spoilers, there's also this sort of underlining conversation on the fate of Jane Foster. Will she carry on the mantle of Thor past this, or will it be Chris Hemsworth carrying on the mantle after this? And there are massive spoilers for that already out there, and I don't want to dig too far into that. But I just want to say that I think this movie will surprise some people, and I think that maybe what you think was going to happen with it is actually not going to happen. And so I don't know. For me personally, like, I'm super excited to see the movie. It feels like a really, really fun summer blockbuster, awesome time in the MCU. I'd be lying if I said that my personal interests weren't, a little bit more towards like what's going on with the multiverse, what's the next big thing, and I don't know that Ragnarok, or rather Love and Thunder, is really going to dive into that too much. It apparently has 2 post-credit scenes, which are really cool, and 1 brand new character that is coming, which seems cool. But I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a really, really good movie. I'm really interested in what's going to happen with the box office for this film. And please let me know in the comment section here, because I have not seen the same level of hype for this movie as I even saw for Multiverse of Madness. And Multiverse of Madness crushing it in the box office, but will very likely not make that $1 billion mark. I'm interested to see what's the deal with Thor, Love and Thunder. Will this movie crush it, break $1 billion, do better than Multiverse of Madness? Because in some ways, it almost feels like an antithesis to that movie, where it's very bright, it has a lot of hope, it talks about really mature things, it's a love story, it's a lot of fun things that I think a lot of Marvel fans were missing from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But on the other hand, the hype train and the rumor mill and speculation for Multiverse of Madness was clearly driving a lot of interest online and got a lot of people to go check it out in the theater. So without a lot of that energy out there, I'm just wondering and interested in how this is going to shake out. But I'm, of course, going to watch it opening day, do a big old video after I've seen it, and do a stream the following day where we talk about it with full spoilers. So go check out our live streaming channel. Make sure you're subscribed over here and check out our views after I actually see the film. And let me know what you think about these different reviews and what people are saying about the movie in the comment section below. Like, is it getting you more hyped? Is it not moving the needle at all? Does it maybe make you less hyped? Where are you at with all that? Let me know in the comment section below.